Hey, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today I'll be showing you how to make carrot cake cookies. All right, trying to squeeze this one in right before Easter. This is a cookie version of one of my favorite cakes, the classic carrot cake. There will be plenty of carrots used. There will be a cream cheese frosting because of course. So let's go ahead and just get started. Now, the first thing I want you to do is get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Next, let's talk about our carrots. For today's recipe, you are going to need a cup of grated or shredded carrots. Now, I like my carrots to be pretty fine. You don't want to grate them too much or then they'll be juicy and not going to work properly that way either, but you don't want them to be too thick either. If they are, they can kind of be too discernible in the cookie and be unpleasant. So the way I grate my carrots, just going to show this briefly, is I will use this shred blade on my food processor and I'll shred them first. And after I do that, I'll take my other blade, drop that in, and then I'm just going to pulse it a few times until I have a nice texture that I'm happy with, a finer grated carrot. This is the finer grated texture that I personally prefer. And if you're thinking my food processor is dirty, it's not, it's just stained because I've been making a lot of carrot stuff recently. All right, so I'm going to set these aside. You will need 1 cup of these for today's recipe. Get this out of the way. One thing I wanted to mention about the carrots is I do prefer to peel them before I shred them. It's just going to make your end result look a little bit nicer, make the orange pop a little bit more. All right, now over in our large mixing bowl, you are going to need 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. Drop this right in our bowl. And to this, you're going to want to add a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. Now you can use all light brown sugar if you'd like, but to kind of up the flavor ante just a little bit, I like to use a 1/2 cup of light brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar. But to be clear, all light brown would work just fine. We're also going to add a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. The dark brown sugar just has more molasses in it. It's going to give you a richer flavor, just a slightly richer cookie without making it too sweet. All right, now today's recipe could be made in your stand mixer, but today I will be using my electric hand mixer. And I'm going to cream these ingredients together until they're light and fluffy. Okay, we have the world's biggest clump of brown sugar in here and it doesn't want to break up. That's right. I showed it who's boss, don't worry. All right, when this is looking lovely and smelling lovely, we can add our eggs. You're going to need 2 large eggs for today's recipe. Ideally, they should be at room temperature. Like a broken record, because I'm always saying that. 1 large egg and 2 large eggs. Let's add these into our batter along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, making things smell even better. And we'll stir everything together again until we have a nice uniform batter. All right, whoa, all right. That button's a little sensitive. So once I've combined the eggs and vanilla, I want to pause, scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl, and give everything a nice scrape, just to make sure there are no brown sugar clumps hiding or anything like that. And we'll just push this out of the way for a second. Grab a separate bowl for your dry ingredients. First thing you'll need is 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We'll also be adding 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. We had a nice subtle spice to give this cookie all the flavors of a carrot cake. We'll also be adding a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. If you want things to be even a little more spicier, you could also add a pinch of ginger. That's optional. I don't include it in the recipe, but sometimes I do that if I'm feeling fancy. You'll need a teaspoon of baking soda and a 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. All right, let's whisk these ingredients together, and then we'll fold them into our wet ingredients. We don't have a whole bunch of dry ingredients right now, so I'm going to just add them all at once. You can use your mixer for this step. I am just choosing not to. And next, we will add our oats. We are using 3 cups of old-fashioned oats, and I'm going to fold these in. I feel like the oats really give these cookies a nice hearty texture. This recipe is closely based off of my oatmeal cookies, which are one of my favorites. So the cookie base is similar in texture to an oatmeal cookie. Fix that in a second, but with a stronger carrot cake flavor. And I think this works really well because since it's a heartier cookie, it works well with the frosting, it keeps it from being too sweet. It just works really well. Okay, so at this point we can add our other add-ins, which is our cup of shredded carrots from earlier. And I do not pat these dry or anything like that before adding them into the batter. They're never wet enough that I need to. We're also going to add some chopped nuts. This is 3/4 cup of I'm using chopped walnuts today, but you could use pecans instead if you prefer. Also, if you don't like nuts, if you're allergic, you can leave them out. The cookies tend to spread a little bit more if you leave the nuts out, but that's not really an issue here. They're not going to spread too much or anything like that. If you wanted to add raisins, you would also add them here. I'd recommend about 3/4 to a cup. Actually, I would recommend no raisins because I think they are really gross. Don't tell my kids I said that, but if you like them, you can add them. Stir everything together. Okay, so once your dough is nicely combined, your mix-ins are looking all uniform, we are going to scoop and bake our cookies. No chilling required, which is great. I'm going to use my 1.5 tablespoon sized scoop, but I am going to do rounded scoops, so each of my cookies is going to use about 2 tablespoons of dough. Some of you have been asking me to weigh my cookie dough, so I will be sure to include that in the notes. I'll weigh a couple of the cookie dough balls. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention is you can just drop these cookies right on the baking sheet if you want, but I like to sort of roll them in my palms to make them sort of roundish. It's going to make them bake up a little bit nicer if you do it that way. This is messy because the dough is sticky. You don't have to do it, just makes things look a little better. All right, we'll take these over to our preheated oven. It should be 350 degrees Fahrenheit. These cookies are going to need to bake for 10 to 12 minutes. All right, now when your cookies are finished baking and they just come out of the oven, you may notice they might seem a little bit underdone right in the centers. This is fine. We're going to let them cool for at least 10 minutes on the baking sheet before we remove them. While they're sitting here, they're going to continue to cook, and those centers will cook up without making the cookies dry. We'll keep them nice and moist in the centers. Now, it is important that you let your cookies cool completely before you try to cover them with frosting, but while they're cooling, let's go ahead and make our cream cheese icing. All right, let's prepare our frosting. As I mentioned, this is a cream cheese frosting, which of course is the only kind of frosting that goes with carrot cake and with these carrot cake cookies. So we're going to start with our butter, and you're going to need 3/4 cup, which is usually 1.5 sticks of softened butter. Now, this is actually an older recipe, and I first wrote it using salted butter, and you can certainly use salted butter. I only have unsalted on hand right now, so I'm going to add just a pinch of salt along with this, probably like a 1/4 teaspoon. I say probably, but I am literally adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I've got my 3/4 cup of butter. We'll add our cream cheese. We are using 12 ounces of cream cheese today. Add that into the bowl. And we're going to stir this together until it is smooth and creamy and lump-free. All right, once that's looking good, we can begin to gradually add our powdered sugar. So I have 4.5 cups of powdered sugar here. And we'll add this just a bit at a time. That was actually more than I wanted to do, so I'll probably end up wearing some of it. We'll see. And keep your mixer speed on low. That will help you keep from getting it all over your kitchen. Like that. I'm not wearing any of it yet. Let's add our last bit. All right, now to help make this frosting a little bit sturdier so that it doesn't melt super easily, I like to add a tablespoon of cornstarch. Now there's already cornstarch in your powdered sugar. We're just increasing the ratio a little bit just to make for a more stable frosting. Stir this in, and once that's combined, we're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract for flavor. And we'll do a quick scrape of the sides and bottom of the bowl, make sure everything's nice and smooth. And then we can go ahead and decorate our cookies. Now you could just spread this on the cookies. You're probably going to have more frosting than you need if you just spread it on. But what I like to do is put this in a piping bag fitted with an Ateco 846 tip. It's my current favorite. The 848 or the Wilton 2D would also work. And I'm going to pipe it on top of the cookies. This is the easiest way to get frosting into a piping bag. Put it in a large cup, fold the edges over, and then nobody needs to hold it for you. All right, let's decorate some cookies. The piping tip just makes this nice and pretty, and it gives you like the perfect amount of frosting per bite. If you make your cookies the size that I did, you'll get 31 cookies out of a batch. I'm just going to decorate a few of them now. And of course, if you'd like, you can add sprinkles on top. For the photos that I did for my website, I used orange and green sprinkles, you know, because carrots, but you can use whatever you'd like. I'm just doing very simple rosettes on top. And that is how you make these carrot cake cookies. Nice and simple, they're so good, and I shared this recipe years ago and they've been one of my favorites ever since. If you try it, or if you have tried them, leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. That is a good cookie. Wow. Eat this whole thing. Why didn't I decorate this cookie? I probably couldn't see it past my belly. And then I'm a professional. Okay, I don't have flour on my face, do I? Why am I like this? My goodness, bowls everywhere. I'm such a mess. Oh, one more. Like, why would I wash my hands?